I'd like to welcome you to this second AGHE Distinguished Teacher presentation. We had one yesterday and now one today. Today I'm pleased in my capacity as chair of the AGHE Faculty Development Committee, which sponsors this award, to introduce Dr. Karen Kopera-Frye. She has been awarded a Distinguished Teacher honor this year. 2 are given every year. It's a competitive and highly selective award of the association. Let me just tell you a little bit about Karen that is not in the program itself. She is an associate professor of human development and family studies at the University of Nevada-Reno. She currently serves as co-chair of the Interdisciplinary Gerontology Curriculum Committee. In her nomination packet, there was much written about her excellent student evaluations, which are consistently high, regardless of the medium of teaching. She teaches web-based, hybrid, distance education, and traditional face-to-face classroom teaching. She has presented over 30 papers at a variety of conferences. She has published 13 articles on the scholarship of teaching that focuses on service learning. And today her talk will be on service learning. Karen graduated from Wayne State University with, as I remember, a bachelor's, master's, and her doctorate. All from Wayne State, yes it is. And today, she will be talking on learning by doing, using service learning to teach about aging, a very cool tool. But before Karen gives her talk, I would like to present a certificate to her. Karen, come on up. Yeah, please don't trip. And let me read.
Sue you? No. I'm sorry.
Well, okay.
No, I wouldn't.
I think I'm covered. I have director's insurance.
There you
okay.
go.
Let me just cite the certificate. The Association for Gerontology in Higher Education presents the Distinguished Teacher Recognition to Karen F. Kopera-Frye, Ph.D., University of Nevada-Reno, for excellence in the teaching of gerontology, commitment to students, and maintenance of the highest academic standards. Congratulations. There you go.
I hate this part. Okay. This
So
is
I
one of
don't-
my students.
Oh, take a picture.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Tara, take the picture. Thank you.
I don't know where the official photographer is, but anyway.
That's okay. No, you know what? I don't.
Cameras work.
As
Go ahead.
Dr. Howe said, my photos look very different in the book. Like people walked by me and said, "Who are you?" "Oh yeah, you're that person." When they looked at my name, where you're reading names at a conference. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me now?
I can hear, but I'm up right.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So I would change this, and I am so. This was such a pleasant surprise. I am very humbled by this, and instead I would change this award to Distinguished Learner, because I never feel I stop learning about how to best teach. And that is why I do a lot of the publications I do, because I think putting it out there for best practices and other types of, so we all can learn. We all can use, we can see what works. I fall flat on my face with some of my techniques, and we all do. We have a toolbox, and there's some better ones and not so good ones. Dr. Donna Frio, I learned so much from her presentation. And I think that, service learning is something she wants to embark on. And I think service learning is not new, as she titled her talk, and I'm going to steal this for a minute, but I'm going to give you credit, Donna Frio, oldies but goodies. When we think about service learning, it's not that it's a new technique, but it has evolved and become more refined. So now what we're looking at is using it in assessment manner, maybe of a program, maybe of a certificate, and I'll share an example of that very thing with you, or in sense of what we evaluate. Do a cost-benefit analysis. What I liked in one of your talks on student engagement yesterday, your award lecture, it was talking about high-risk and low-risk strategies or tools in our toolbox, and sometimes we have a fear as instructors or teachers or mentors of trying something new. Service learning can be scary, but you know what? It's pretty scary for both the teacher and the student. And that's something to keep in mind. It is a high risk, or as you were trying to portray it, which I agree with you, highly fearful or high stress, but the payoffs are great. I hope to convince you that it's so worth doing, and you won't fall flat on your face. Hopefully, I have 5 top reasons why we need to be doing service learning. So it's not just rehashing some old stuff that's out there. The bar is raised on what we do about service learning and how we do it. And part of it is they've added an evaluation component. I think that's invaluable. Now, why I have this silly hat on, it's not silly.
Don't trip.
Don't worry. Not so sure about insurance, are you? No. Hey, where's my thing?
No.
I thought you were going to do that. Okay, now opportunities to trip. Hang on. Technologically, I'm not a star by any means. In fact, no, I can push the button. Yeah, I think. There are days, though. What I learned from students, here's just a little side thing, it has nothing to do with service learning. But when I get in my classes, I find right away an expert. Because I tell them, look, I'm not going to play, I'm not portraying who I'm not. I'm a technological idiot. I don't know what to do. So somebody needs to help me get my little clips in there and my PowerPoints and they laugh and they say, oh, Dr. Frye, we got to take care of her. So it takes a village sometimes to raise Dr. Frye. But a good thing these students are so savvy, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I have actually relocated, and it's okay, you didn't know since I submitted that. I'm at University of Nevada-Reno. She's looking like, what?
Oh, now you're in social work.
Yes, School of Social Work, and still working with the academic, Gerontology academic program. This is not good. Okay, just a minute. I feel like I'm fading, and I don't like to fade. Should I just use my teaching voice? I can yell pretty good at the best of them. Okay. What's that?
The camera won't get you because we take
I'm all
it.
tangled up. See? Okay. Let's try this. Okay? Okay. I think my shirt's falling off now, but okay. So why I have this hat on, to cut to the chase here, one of the things I really love to do is be a teacher and mentor, because I see it as a mentor or a facilitator in many cases. We'll talk about the instructor in a service learning type of approach or classroom or project within a classroom is very much more of a facilitator, not necessarily an instructor and teacher. Okay. The other thing I like to do is research. So I'm passionate about both. But the third reason, I'm in my happy place right now because I don't like to sit up here and have my picture taken. You see, I have many different pictures. I don't like any of them, okay? People have said, that doesn't even look like you in the book. Where'd that come from? So I'll just put Mr. Magoo there next time or something. But anyway, what I really like to do is ride in my horses. So I'm in my little happy place. And when you come to Reno next year, please do, see the mountains? That's what you're going to see. This slide was made for us in Nevada. Okay, so the other thing is, since I got here, another thing you'll need to know is bring lots of water because we are a lizard kind of climate. You will dry up, apple doll. 3% humidity is a lot, so be careful to not be dehydrated. We're at high altitude. So when I came here, I looked like Annie on a bad day, or Einstein on probably a good day. Okay, so what I have is my friends and colleagues were sick of me whining about the whole thing, so they bought me this culturally appropriate, yes, isn't that cool? Barrette, because they just didn't want to hear me talk about how my hair was going everywhere with ducktailing and everything else. So I'm in my happy place riding my horse right now, but really I'm talking to you too. And this barrette is because my hair is so ridiculous when it's with this humidity. It's like, and it's looking different every time. I comb it this way, it goes this way. This morning it went this way. It was sticking up like flock of seagulls. I'm dating myself. That band like this morning. So I really don't. I'm sorry, I have pictures. Okay. So why did I say service learning is nothing new? It's been around. John Dewey talked about this to the National Education Council back in 1902. So yes, it has been around. It's an oldie but goodie, as Donna Frio was talking about. Another one of the examples of that. But I challenge you because I'm going to show you a statistic that you might find a little surprising. I perused the program, and less than 10% of our presentations, whether they be workshops, paper sessions, or posters, are service learning projects. So why 107 years later haven't we advanced? It's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I wouldn't be lying to you. Telling you about service learning, it's something you want to do. So I'll pose a challenge at the end of this talk. But if you think about the history of it, the American Association of Higher Education, which is AGHE, what had basically fostered, there was this moral value, societal switch in the 80s to let's be civic engagement. You may have heard about that, and community partnerships and bridging to the community, et cetera. All of that sponsored, or I would say was the springboard, if you will, for campus compact programs, where in fact they were giving small grants to start up service learning projects, because the idea was we have got to get our young professionals involved and out in the community and giving back. Okay, that's what it's about. So this is not a new idea, but again, the technique has been refined, I would argue. It has been refined to have more stringent criteria attached to it if you want to do it the right way. Okay. So as you heard Marilyn say, her goal, she was getting excited and passionate, is to change the world. And I say, you go, girl. Mine is pay it forward. I mean, if we think about what this does with service learning, I'll tell you, I'll read you some of the final papers. I have them create a service learning portfolio, and they assess, they self-evaluate their emotion state, their cognitive level of knowledge, and I even interview the seniors, or have them interview the seniors that they actually do the service learning projects with, and they grow and they transform. And by the end of this one semester, this is usually 1 or 2 assignments in a 15-week aging class. We're not talking about some places, New York, Dr. Rudin has whole classes that have common course prefix, so it's service learning courses that any discipline or major can take to count, but it is a year-long course. That's a very different idea than 15 weeks and pulling off some projects. So I think when you think about that, what it does is it inspires, it motivates, it energizes the students, and then they go, I want to do more. And I find them coming back to my classes, aging classes, and they say, we take yours because we know we're going to do some of that service learning stuff. See, they're trying to understand it. They don't know what it is. And there is a bit of hesitancy and fear at the beginning and anxiety, because I give them readings. I explain to them, I lecture what service learning is. There still is like, ooh, what if people don't like what I choose to do? Because I let them create learning goals for themselves and for their project. And I've done service learning projects both on an individual basis as well as a small group format. And it really depends on several things, which I'll talk about later, but level of course or sophistication or progress in program as an undergrad is the main thing. I've also done this with graduate students, doctoral students, in a program evaluation class, 700 levels. So I think that at least one of my main goals is knowledge that matters, knowledge that impacts, knowledge that inspires them to want to do more. That's that movie, Pay It Forward. I don't even remember, I'm not bad at who's Hollywood and what names or what, the little kid, that went in there and drew the little, population people that were increasing, and his teacher kept saying, what are you talking about? And the idea was that, if you do this, they'll catch on, and 2 more people will do this, and if you do that, 4 more people will do that. That's what I'm hoping happens here. Okay, it's a very low cost for a high payout. That's what's going on. Okay, oldie but goodie, I already covered this. This is what was interesting to me. 107 years later, okay, we can call it civic engagement, we can call it service learning, we can call it community-based partnerships, we can call it community bridges, we can call it a intensive field experience. It's been called many things. But why do we have 17, and I counted, yes I did this morning, 208 submissions, presentations, not submissions, let me be correct, presentations that involved, less than 10% were involving a service learning component, including the workshops, including papers and separate papers and paper sessions, et cetera. So my challenge to you is it's a good thing. There's a lot of literature supporting this as an efficacious way to teach, a pedagogy. It is a way to inspire students, and I'll talk about the millennials. Anybody hear about them? I'm not one of them, obviously. Pay it forward, I probably told you that. I was talking to one of my grad students yesterday, and I said something, they're like, what? You know, I'm like the Blue Bonnet commercials. Okay, let me date myself. Anybody remember Blue Bonnet? Okay, they thought I was nuts. And they're like, and there's apparently an ice cream called Bluebell that has something to do with the state flower. I don't quite get that. Oh, by the way, the horse is attached to me, still out there riding in my field right now, okay? But, so I said, oh, don't you remember the Blue Bonnet, put Blue Bonnet on it? Students look at me like I'm crazy or drunk or something. And I'm like, you know, the percolator, remember the Maxwell House? Percolators, like. So, you know, you start talking to students. We are teaching those students. And the student happens to be a millennial. That's okay, they're a good thing. Because I'll tie it back to why I think they're gonna be the big proponents of this service learning methodology. So we as teachers, if we're not millennials, guess I can't lie about it, right? I don't dye my hair. That's another story. But you know I'm not in that little group range. But we teach them. And so we can teach to what level they're comfortable with. And that was brought up several times. I don't know if you get a chance to go to the Tibbetts Award lecture and talking about policy and economics. And what he said in the end was, who's going to make the difference here? Millennials. Why? There are some things. I call my nephew, he's 24 years old, he lives next door. I call him Bambi. He's a little naive and sheltered, but he'll be a buck or whatever you call a big deer one day. But one of the things that is about him, the characteristics, I went to a pre-conference workshop and they talk about millennials as being, their parents were overindulging, over-involved, they were told they were special. Oh my, look at you, everything's about you. And we know as teaching a class of 300, there's like something called sense of entitlement. That's what I label it. It's a lesson, but it's almost like this. And so in a pre-conference workshop by Dr. Donna over here, she was talking, they had a real nice, one of her colleagues at Western Michigan University talked about what the characteristics or attributes of millennials are. And very interesting, they are so hooked up. My nephew is talking to me, instant messaging, and you saw my technological capabilities. That's obviously why I'm not a millennial. But, you know, talking on the phone, we're at the dinner table, he's answering. We're in a theater, you know, in the dark, right? Computer, playing video 1 or PlayStation 1. He's got a headphone on, an iPod. He's wired, he's clipped, you know, and I'm like, multitasking, amazing, okay? But they're very connected, and they're very group needy. They're very group cohesive, if you want to think about it from a sociology perspective. They're always with their cliquey little friends and groups. And what people have shown in looking, some sociologists across these generations, is that it's switched from what they call helicopter parents who are over-involved with these, producing these millennials, to a wave when their parents, where they're going to go, you know, the soccer mom, you're scheduled, Johnny, to be here, here, and here. They're stressed. But you know what? Because of their connectedness and the need for affiliation in groups, they're going to be ideal for a movement of service learning. They're going to be very much the advocates of service learning. That's my prediction. So, and that was also said by in the Academic Tibbetts Award speech too. So they will be the front runners for that as well. So it maybe isn't about the boomers being vocal and changing the world. We have to look at this other generation. Okay, so what is this? Well, it's been labeled many things. I think that there's key components. I'm going to refer you to a very nice, sponsored by the Association for Gerontology and Higher Education, Generations Together, and University of Pittsburgh. However, it's a little old, but it's very good. It was an intergenerational service learning, a compendium called Reflection and Service Learning. I'll pass it around. Do not take it. It was $25. Practical guidance from multiple perspectives. So I think what this is, it's time for us to update all the cool things. People are really doing service learning a little differently in there. But some of the critical aspects like reflection, and why we differentiate service learning from internship, from field placement, from other things is it's a reciprocal learning. It's a two-way street, okay? The elders, the older adults, are learning just as much from the students as the students are learning from the elders, okay? And I think that's the benefit of this versus an internship class, for instance, where they do put in so many clock hours in the field, but really the benefit is that student needs to complete an internship for their degree major, okay? So it's more of a take situation. So some elements are common, like reflection. It has to be there. That is one of the critical elements of service learning, or community partnerships, or what do you want to call this. Service learning, I have the students create their own projects. Now I know in some other places, this is what the class is. We have a syllabus and everybody does the same service learning projects. I first got really excited about all this when 2 years ago, I really got more looking at the literature than I had before, when Dr. Rudin did in Portland, I don't know if anybody went to the pre-conference workshop. It was wonderful on service learning. And these were some handouts, and his colleague at that time was at Stockton College, and some family emergency happened, and he didn't show up. But I will pass around his syllabus, it's not mine, but this is an example of where they have a whole year course with a general prefix so that social work students, different students of different majors can take it. So I'll pass that around. It's kind of not together in any way, but one of the things that you see is reflection, reflection, reflection. And what I would say that we've done and how we've refined service learning in the biggest way is adding an evaluative dimension. We want to assess and evaluate the impact. You should not believe me if I say, believe me, it's a good tool. It's kind of cool, you should do it. There should be data, that's my researcher speaking. We have to have data to substantiate this, okay? And there now is a body of that. People are doing it in different places in very different ways. It's time to come up with another collected work. Remind me to tell you about something that's on the horizon along those lines. Okay, so we have reflection, we have journaling, we have a set number of hours. It could be a semester long, it could be an assignment within a semester class, it could be a year-long general prefix class. Takes many forms. Could be individual based. What I do with my students is different by the aging classes that I'm doing it in. As I said at University of Nevada-Reno, our Gerontology academic program, we have Program of Merit, approved program. We are the 7th to get that distinction. We're very happy about that. We also have a minor in gerontology. It's undergraduate at this point, okay? And what we do is we have right now, I think it's Betty, help me out, the director's back there, 9 classes, 5 classes, where we have 120 hours of service learning. So there are different numbers of classes that they will put in different numbers of field hours. I'm thinking right now I teach, for example, Advanced Human Development, which is a Human Development and Family Studies prefix class. I require in that class 40 service hours. And I do that at the group level, small group level. So 3 or 4 individuals are doing one concerted service learning project. In my 201, Intro to Topics and Careers in Gerontology, mostly freshmen, 200 level. The other class is 400, juniors, seniors, right? A little bit more sophisticated, hopefully a few more classes under their belt, because our initial introduction course is the Gero 201 course, the Introduction to Topics and Careers in Gerontology. I have them actually do less hours, 20 hours. And I have them, what I do at that is highly, highly, highly supervise them, because it's the first time they're cut loose to do a service learning course in our Gero certificate program, okay? When they get to the more advanced stages, they kind of know, oh, there she goes again, we're going to do service learning. But they like it. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound negative. But you can see that there's many factors you have to consider. Size of class. I have an online class, Perspectives in Aging, a 400 level, mostly junior and seniors right now, which is a total WebCT, online class. And I'm having them still produce portfolios and post some of their, what I would call the final paper. I'll give you a handout of what my typical service learning portfolio looks like. However, I do evolve and modify that. I ask the students, this is something I do when I teach anyway, whether it has to do with the technique I'm using at the time called service learning or something else. We have our course evaluations. We all know they have issues, right? You get overinflated, underinflated, blah, blah, blah. If they like you, if you're a cheerleader, you're cool, or whatever. I don't put a lot of faith in that, okay? It's just, I like numbers, but not those. Okay, but I get good ones, but whatever. So what I do is I have students voluntarily and anonymously, kind of throughout the semester, tell me what I should start, stop, and continue doing. That's just a technique that you might have presented for a student engagement distinguished awardee. But what I do instead is I do that to get feedback. And if they say, you know, this is a problem, or I say, please, you know, at all times, if there's a group, you know, students usually go, you're making me do a group project. Do you get this response, or is it just intrinsic to Nevada? Okay, good. But what I do is I built in another evaluation component. And what that is under the threat of in penalty of death, I will not show the ratings they get from their little peers in their group to them. So it is a chance for them to tell me, since I am not with them the whole time, I'm not a helicopter mom like the millennials are. I instead trust that they're researching things, and I am supervising the service learning project, but I can't be there every minute and see what's going on with the group dynamics and who's slacking off and who isn't. Because I make them produce portfolios individually, I have them do a group presentation at the end. Now, you know, I've heard horror stories, and you probably have too. Oh, you know, Johnny just blew us off, and guess what? I wrote this section, I did all that. Dr. Frye wasn't him at all. That's why I use this group evaluation method. And I've had so many people in counseling and the ed program now saying, give me that form. Because our students so hate group projects. In education, college education, they have to do a lot of group stuff and teamwork, and they're really resisting that. Once they sit in my class, they email me and say, send me these forms, because it makes it go better. Now I get people say, a group project, cool. I mean, that is a very different switch. Usually it was like, she's gonna make me do that again. I'd rather just do my own, because I always carry too much of the weight. So something to think about, lots of evaluation of each other. If you're gonna do a group service lane project, having the consumers, who are the consumers? Older adults, right, of this project or projects, or however it plays out, series of projects. I also do a senior feedback form. And I say, you need to, as part of your portfolio, give me 5 or more, better, you know, more is better here, but, you know, I don't point grade them and tie it to that. I ask them fill out ask the seniors, how relevant was this? What would you recommend the students not do? What would you recommend they do? How would they change it? What activities would you like to see projects wrapped around? Because they are going to everything from long-term care facilities for these projects to independent living, to low-income Section 8 senior housing, HUD housing, independent living complexes but low income, all kinds of places. They're at senior centers, they're in hospitals. I can't begin to tell you where they're at. Everywhere. So I let them kind of drive. They come up with specific learning goals, 3 to 5, that they have to put in a proposal. I have to approve the site. I have to make sure they refine their goals enough that they can evaluate themselves at the end of the experience. It's very important. If you write goals that are too global or nebulous and you have no idea what that means, you won't be able to document it. And I say at the end, you're going to tell me how you achieve that goal of working with disabled elders. What do you mean working with disabled elders? That doesn't fly as a learning goal to me. I want to know how you're going to do that. What evidence are you going to show me that you have attained that goal by the end of the course? That's what goes in their portfolios, and I do have some examples for you. Okay. Not a big shocker, allows for real world learning. But this is very important. You know, I used to really have a problem sometimes with my colleagues, I won't say where, at a different place, because they would do all this research and it was like hours of cognitive computer-based batteries, and they'd bring older adults in there and then trigrams and nonsense syllables. You know, those nasty things? I can't do any of those, big surprise, right? But, you know, it's like, what's the relevancy of this for an older adult? They definitely see what's going on here, the older adults. And the students, if you went to the talk, the president, a little contentious. Anybody go to the dye hair versus don't kind of thing? Presidential symposium yesterday. And one of the things that came out by the end, it was the students, you know, perpetuate the myths. They have false beliefs. In the end, several teachers in this room said, you know, I really feel like I'm betraying something. I'm standing here with, you know, red, burgundy, Miss Clairol number 429 on my head, and I'm telling you, boy, isn't aging lovely? Come on, 20 millennial student, 20-year-old, you know, don't you love this? I mean, look at all the stuff that happens. You slow down, you know, you still can learn, but, you know, and they feel like there's a you know, what am I doing? And am I being forthright and honest? So one of the things that I proposed to that little dilemma, they're having a little conflict, obviously, inner conflict. There's my psychology training coming out. But in terms of with how do I, you know, am I being true to gerontology? Am I being should I just be a gerontologist that wears my gray hair proudly? Obviously, as a badge, I earned every one of them, and I'm stuck with them anyway. I don't have time to do the root touch-up thing or whatever people do. But anyway, so you know, should I do that or should I not? And then I'm teaching about all the I like to focus on the positive aspects of aging. I can always find stuff to get them jazzed about. But unfortunately, students oftentimes with limited experience, I've heard them say things like, quote, old people creep me out. Yeah, you know, they're smelly. They're all smelly. They're all demented. And I do Palmer's Facts on Aging quiz. Use that to challenge their stereotypes and misbelief or false beliefs in the classroom. I use that and I say, okay, I start that with the class. It's an in-class exercise. But then by the field, the older adults have convinced them things are different. So if you have a little conundrum, an internal inner conflict about, I don't know what I should be teaching, should I be dyeing my hair or not, am I true to the discipline, blah, 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 as went on in that conversation yesterday. Instead, why not let the older adults teach the students? Takes you right out of the picture, right? It's a pretty good thing. You don't have to worry about it. If you dye your hair or not, you're behind the computer, you're not in the field. You're not having the conflict saying, isn't aging wonderful in all ways? You know, you don't have to. The students learn. They learn so much. Learn more than we could ever teach them in a classroom or have in books or anything else. Through this experiential learning. That's why I love this stuff. Okay. Okay, 5 reasons if you don't believe me. This millennials, you might have been going, what is she talking about? Had to be at the pre-conference workshop with Dr. Donna and company. But they were talking about individuals born 1982. Oops. Wow. You're not yet born. That was after I counted 207 or whatever the things were. Okay, program things. 2003. Sorry about that. I have a typo in your slide. Basically, over-nurtured, plugged in. That's why Dr. Palliative was talking about they're going to be excellent candidates for really changing things. They're very group cohesive. Some of these slides may not be on there, just so you know. No. I'm not teaching the slides or the tests, sorry guys. But no, I added some things after because I like to see what people are saying about it. And I had the pleasure of, listening to the other awardee lecture and stimulated some thoughts. You're in here too, then went to the presidential symposium and heard that little contentious situation. And then, kind of went to that great Tibbetts lecture. And it all, people are talking about this. It's something to do. We just need to do it. We're not doing it enough. That's my point. Okay, so I think there's reasons to do it. It's very suited to the type of students we are teaching. You might say, but you know what, Karen, I don't have those 20-year-olds in my classes. I bet you do. But maybe, she's shaking her head, no. Oh, okay. Well, you still can do this. I published a paper, it's on your resource list, in looking at teaching graduate students, a 700-level doctoral students from an interdisciplinary social psych program on how to use service learning to engage and bridge with agencies where they did needs assessments. It was a needs assessment program evaluation course at the graduate level. They did these projects that had service learning components. 70% of them got offered jobs to stay on at the end of that course, and they were graded for the course. I mean, this is how so look it up. You can do it with all levels. Here's a very compelling reason, if we talk money. And I can't take credit for this. Dr. Rudin, 2 years ago at that pre-conference workshop in 2007, talked about how you can use the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You look it up, and there are numerous categories of disciplines and jobs and occupational titles, et cetera. And it says what rate of pay they get per hour. So we use was it Allied Health? Betty, help me out here. She's looking at me sideways. I believe it's health service, applied health service rate. It's many rates. For the $17.12 an hour Bureau of Labor Statistics rate. And then if you look at what he says is a very compelling argument, this is Dr. Rudin from that pre-conference workshop, so I'm giving you Portland if you weren't there. He said what you can do is calculate the number of hours times the number of students times that rate, $17.12. That covers nursing type majors, social work majors, psychology majors, everybody else, right? For look at that worth. This is just 2 semesters. Remember, we do not have a year-long service learning class. We just can't do it. We have instead a service learning project in one fall class and a service learning project in another spring class. That's what that is here. So that is our total number of students in those aging classes. 2 semesters, 319 Gero students completed that many total hours times the rate, and look at what it's worth. You know, the in-kind stuff on grants when we talk about donating in-kind. But that is very reflective. Look at that. I mean, that's a compelling argument to your administrators at your institution on why we want to have something like this. Do you realize this is what the worth of that is? And that is volunteer and a student learning situation, and it's reciprocal learning. You're doing a service to the older adults, but the students are learning from those older adults as well, and you're helping. In these economic times, this becomes more critical, right? Because they're cutting programming, I don't know about your place, but all over the place by us, right? In terms of social service kinds of health programming. So I think the other thing this is referring, the fourth way, is referring to the presidential symposium that, in fact, if you have this conundrum about teach this, don't teach this, what is aging, how do I best teach it, how do I best portray the image of myself to the students to make it palatable so I feel okay and they feel okay. If you don't like all that, why don't you just let the elders teach them? You can dye your hair or not dye your hair, it doesn't matter, right? So that takes the problem out. And I think in terms of my other passion is assessment and evaluation. So I work a lot with our university assessment office in doing something called curriculum mapping. Okay, that's a whole nother like day talk. Anybody know what curriculum mapping is? Oh, good. Then you can tell them. No, it's a kind of a graphic portrayal. We got invited, there's an article on your sheet I wrote with my colleagues in the assessment office that we started using it when I was in Human Development and Family Studies Department because we ran into problems. You hear something like this from students. You know, they're teaching us the same stuff, the same theory. I swear I've heard this 20 times in the 5 major courses, core courses I need to take. Why is that? So we said, maybe they're just delusional. And I thought, no, maybe not. So I was an assessment coordinator, and we mapped out each course with our student learning objectives, what we hope to have them have by the time they graduated with an undergraduate degree and a major in Human Development and Family Studies. I'll get to Gero in a minute. Okay, so what did we find? They were right. Duplication all over the place. Teaching at the wrong level, teaching out of sequence. We were teaching advanced level stuff to 201 people, and we were teaching introductory level stuff to 400 level, more advanced students. Those are course levels. So you can see the problem already. They were right. And they were hearing about Berman and Asa and myself and everybody talking about Bronfenbrenner, for instance, or something. Yeah, we heard that. We're sick of hearing the model. Okay, move on. You know? So it really was invaluable. And when you put it on a grid, which I did with a colleague of mine who was the co-assessment coordinator, and put it out there on the table, now see, academic freedom instructors get a little bristly about, what are you telling me? How I'm going to teach my class? Wait a minute. And what the content and how I'm going to do that? You have a little graph and you put it on the table and you say, look at this. Do you see the patterns? We kind of just sat back and said, figure it out, guys. We see it. So they'd say, wow, wrong levels of teaching. Wow, that's redundant. We dropped courses. We save money. This is all relevant to all of us with the budget issues. So a curriculum map is a good thing. You have a reference for it to read about. Yeah.
Did you also look at the grades of the students who complained? Because I did, and their grades are no better. It's not like they don't need the repetition sometimes.
Students don't always know what they need. Is that an understatement? But you're right. No, we actually, it's not student-based, and what's interesting is the courses are written down, not the instructor name. I would not write your name on this grid for everybody on the faculty to see when I come to a meeting and say, look, guys, we got a problem. Because you know what people do? They get their claws out and they back in the corner and like, yeah, you can't tell me how to teach my class, blah, blah, blah. So what we did is curriculum mapping is a spatial representation, almost like a multiplication table. You put the student learning objectives you have from your mission statement or whatever other source you would like. You put the classes here without names, and you start in the cells putting this information, and that's where you see the redundancies. Look it up. I explain the whole map process. But we were invited to speak to Canada, the Society for Teaching and Learning in Higher Education. And then they had inaugural journal they created called Collected Essays on Learning and Teaching. That's on your resource list. But it is about what they said, please write this up. Well, first come and talk to us in Alberta, which was cool, but it was like winter time and it was not cool. It was cold. So, we did this and it was like, wow. So they, stay inside and do maps. It's very cold in University of Alberta in the wintertime. But anyway, so we did that, and then they said, please publish this and get it out there. So curriculum mapping is also another kind of assessment technique, not tied necessarily to service learning. But what I did with it, in a nutshell, is also mapped our program of merit undergraduate certificate. We aligned it with AGHE's priorities, their knowledge-based and their skills-based objectives. And then we mapped our courses onto how well AGHE's organizing principles, how you will teach and impart what's the critical stuff in aging. Do you need to discuss the psychosocial, biological, and cognitive processes of aging? Yes. That's an AGHE organizing principle. You have to look at the dynamics, the social dynamics of elders, right? Okay, so you mapped our classes onto that at the top, which is AGHE's principles. And we put that in our PALM application, and they really liked it. And in fact, they said that would be something that others should do. Because clearly you could see redundancies. You do it to refine, and then you make another map sometime later after you made some changes. With assessment, it never ends. It's kind of a nasty A word to some people. I like it. I enjoy it. But the whole point is it's a loop. It's a feedback process where you must find out the issues, deal with them by refining or modifying, assess again, track the program, collect the data, and we start the cycle all over again. You just keep running in a circle. But it's important because it's improvement at every stage. Okay. Oh, and I just think it's cool. That's my number 5, but you can take it or leave it. Okay. This stuff you have, there's a lot of literature. I also put this Eiler and colleagues on your resource list. I think it's important. It does document the benefits. If you haven't already heard me kind of allude to some of the benefits already. What are the benefits for faculty? A lot of times they say a challenge or a problem is, I won't get rewarded for this. This is seen as fuzzy stuff. Well, not if it's assessment evaluation. And I've kind of convinced my colleagues administrators that, I also do the hardcore data research articles, but I do this too because to me, this is going a longer way. Getting it out there so people can try it, adapt it, modify it, improve it. I don't hope to know the answer to all this stuff, right? That to me is very important. And that stimulates scholarly teaching that, again, will be contagious in a sense. And it's a good contagious thing. So I think in that sense, but oftentimes it's at your expense of time. And I haven't found out, quite honestly, how to make it real, very not time intensive. At the 200 level, so there's a drawback. At the 200 level, you have newbies that, again, old people creep them out. So now you got to do a lot of foundational education before you cut them loose because you don't want them out there doing bad things. But the benefit of this, though, I've now bridged and partnered with all these senior agencies and housing units, and they're basically my research sites. Because they'll say, we really like Dr. Frye's students. Look what they did for us. Hey, you want to come in and do this study? There you go. Yeah. So I make sure that they don't mess up my relationship with these sites. But it is a good thing. It's a win-win for everybody. But I think that you have to monitor it. And with the 200 level, obviously, not so savvy, hasn't had a lot of aging classes under their belt yet, you can imagine you have to supervise a little bit more. Okay? And so that's why I say I want the idea approved. I want to know exactly. I want to see your learning goals. You will revise your proposal till I can understand exactly what you're saying, how you're going to do it, and you understand. That's your guide, your recipe book, okay? And then in the end, I would like to see how you're going to reflect on it, how you're going to grow on this, and you're going to show me that, or you're not going to get a good grade. But I haven't really had a problem. I could say I had one student one time where just tried to pull it off the last minute. You can't walk into, they know. They're now savvy that the sites where we go. I have about 85 sites that I go to of different, like I said, long-term care, independent living, assisted living. And that list has grown. Because one agency talks to her and says, hey, have you had those students yet? And they say, yeah. Well, hopefully they say, yeah, that was nice. Hey, I want some of those. Who do I talk to get some? I mean, that's really what I get. And it's almost like, in a sense, analogous to an internship situation. You will start getting people to say, hey, you got any people? And they realize that's important, because for them it helps them with activities programming. They've done everything from chair exercises to nutrition talks to health talks, mini talks, to Sudoku, to training them, to talking to the older adults about how they hold myths and fallacies about older adults themselves. I mean, training on myths. It's really amazing, this stuff. And this is dinner mystery theaters. They've had them as acting out mystery, murder plays. I mean, and dressing up tea parties with hats and all kinds of stuff. Really amazing. You know what? None of that came from me. I mean, I was like, well, you guys come up with something. But, I want to hear it. It can't be crazy. And it can't be harmful, obviously. And so you have to censor that up front a lot. Once they do it, though, they take off and go. I don't have a problem. So you could argue it's time intensive, but more at the beginning than the end. Again, publishability, it's really, some institutions differ on this. I'm associate, but I had published enough research articles, not just scholarly teaching, as they call these, and say that's under your teaching in your annual eval. All the stuff, the articles I published, they don't see as research. I could argue with them, but you may have the same situation. But know that there are forums for this, and I'll say a little bit more about that at the end. Okay, I'm going to refer you just to that because to explain curriculum mapping in great detail is really a whole workshop of 5 hours long that I don't have time to do. Where am I at? What time?
It's 25.
Ah!
But
I can.
Most of you are going to the network lunch, and
I want to leave time for questions,
that is
so.
Yeah, right. And it's a schlep. I don't know exactly. It's like a long ways from here, like 5 minutes. So we might want to think, Karen, if it's okay, ending about 5 minutes.
I have to talk less?
Well, it's up to you.
Okay.
But
So tell me, we want time for questions, right?
yeah,
Okay, so you
that's-
stop me when you
What
think.
time?
I would like to give 20 minutes for questions. Is that fair to you guys? This is a
So I'm gonna
democracy.
stop
Okay.
you 10 minutes.
I'm pretty,
Is that good?
yeah. I can do it because they have a lot of this. And if not, please, I did put my email all over that. I'd be happy to share with you my curriculum mapping worksheets. Let me give you, I see some people leaving though. Let me give you, these are various rubrics and my portfolio content so you get an idea of what I look at. I want to get to what can we do about some of these problems. Lack of reward, typical. You can imagine this may be the case in your institution. I'm not going to get to show you the PowerPoints I had of them in the field, but I'll read you a few excerpts because I think they're important. The recommendations you should have, if you'd like to discuss them, what I have learned as I go, and that's why I say I'm constantly learning. I can pass around some portfolios or just read you a couple excerpts, which I will, because I think this speaks louder than what I can ever tell you about the rest of it. I'm not going to read them all. You have a look of horror on your face. She's like, what? But I can pass them around, but please, again, these are the students' projects. And, I don't care how they package them or what they do. I'll just read you a couple little things that allude to these themes I talked about where there might be a high stakes uncomfortableness. By doing this service learning project, one of the last learning goals I hope to achieve is to learn more about myself. This is what I hope for. This is what makes me crazy. I love it. I want to learn whether or not working with older adults could be a career I might possibly want to venture into. I want to learn if I like the environment, the interactions that take place, if I am naturally good at this kind of work. Educational courses. I did not say any of these words. This is a student. Educational courses can only take me so far. In order to learn about what I want in my career, I have to go out in the community and really see what it's like. So what you're getting is portfolio contents on the pink, and then they do little You know, we have model release forms, we have photos. I'll pass some of this around. But you're getting several things. The green is this a two-sided senior feedback form. I give them also directions to take out into the agency because I don't want, the tab pages have relevant points, but you can look at all of it. The green form, I like to get the students to fill out or sit down and talk to if the senior can't write, they actually, you know, interview them and record the answers for me, but that's what I require 5 or more on for every project. The yellow form, go Western, Dr. D. This is out of the Certified Family Life Educator, National Council on Family Relations. Yet another way to assess competencies down the left margin, and they have 10 substantive areas. We are a Certified Family Life program as well, Life Educator program, in Human Development Family Studies, not in the GERO program. But they have required content areas. So this may be helpful. I have the students monitor and self-evaluate on this form every couple weeks.
Excuse me, Karen, are they supposed to use the white handout too?
Yes, can you do this? If you haven't done this before, not only do I do this stuff, I'm a health literacy scholar. Well, no, I'm a newbie on that. No, we got a grant at Nevada Geriatric Education Center to learn about health literacy, and I was selected to do that. So for the last year, I've been learning what health literacy is, and I still am learning, okay? But one of the things I have to do, because they funded me coming here, partially, is I have a payback thing, and I do a project. So quite honestly, a little quick and dirty project I created was what is a quick awareness level, or knowledge level, if you will, just a 10-item quiz. It's confidential, don't put your name on it. If you could fill that out, I'd appreciate it. And I'm just going to see what do people know or don't know about health literacy. And don't feel bashful because I didn't know anything before. I had to train for it for a year. Okay, here's the real good one. I like this. Here's speaking to the risk or fear of a student. I was a little nervous going into this activity because I didn't know if there was going to be really sick residents, here, see the stereotypes, or overbearing activity directors running the show. That's experiential there. I was pleasantly surprised that everyone was in good health and that the seniors were the ones to run the game. No one was overseeing them. So then I asked them to, on the pink sheet, talk about the effective level they felt at their journaling each time they go out here and spend some time towards the hour, the 20-hour or 30-hour commitment project. This week's activity somewhat relates. I have them tie it back to class speakers or other things too in my in-class, not in my online. This week's activity somewhat relates to the owner of Park Place's lecture. I saw a whole different perspective of retired assisted living. It is different than how Park Place is run, but also similar in other aspects, and then they go on to explain how they're similar. So they're making these, this is high-level learning. In Bloom's taxonomy, which I like, and I don't have time to tell you about, but you can write that. You probably know about Bloom's taxonomy. These guys are at the synthesis high level. They're evaluation stage. That's what we hope to. We don't want rote memorization of anything. We want them to be able to critically think, right? To evaluate, to compare. They're doing this. I don't say compare speakers or places or anything else. They just do it. So some really cool things going on. I got a bunch of these. I wanted to tell you about there's one really great one, and I'll stop, from a senior. Well, one is thank you for doing what you do. My yellow form, your lime green form, tells them that I'm doing this for a class, and I only want to know from the senior standpoint for what kinds of activities will be more successful experiences for them and the students in the future. And they were talking about well, I can't find it right now. I can tell you what it said. It said, it is really important for us to interact with the younger generation. We learn so much from them, and they learn so much from us. Basically, that was what one person wrote in here. I just can't seem to find it. But, there are various agencies. These are agencies, different places, different levels, different kinds of intensity of projects. They oftentimes will donate, like if they pumpkin carve, they take them over to the battered women's shelter. They've made cookies for the veterans and cookie frosting did those, and things that they've kind of they've instilled charitable kinds of activities with the seniors and then donated them to REMS or fire department or veterans. So that's also a byproduct. I didn't direct, it just happens. So there you go. I was going to tell you something real quick. I had a conversation with Pearl from Publications Committee, and I did talk to some of you about this because I got a brilliant idea, I think. I don't know. They said, why don't you publish this? And I said, well, of course I'm going to do that because everything's publishable. You just got to find the right home, right? So I said, well, on that note, are you interested in a special issue of GGE, right? And so what we're going to do, Judith Sugar and myself from University of Nevada-Reno, and Tara McMullen, one of our grad students, I want to get her professionally developed here, are going to basically coordinate. So we're going to have a call for papers. It's going to be a turnaround quick, but either we're going to put in proposals as soon as we get back. We talked to Pearl. She said there is another group that wants a special issue too. So she said it's not a matter of which one of you will get it. It's a matter of, are you going to be in the upcoming one, which will be released in September. It'll be an 09 publication for you. But the deadline, we need submitted articles. It's going to be on student involvement projects, field setting, all Gero only, or service learning. So if you're doing an evaluation piece, you're doing some kind of cool project, I know you are, and I'm thinking you're going to embark on one at University of Connecticut. So could, even any kind of piece, please send those. I'll get approval from Pearl probably Tuesday. And then if you can meet the deadline, it would be the end of March at the latest that I would need a submission. If that's not going to work for you, or if she says, no, I'm going to go with the other group first, we're talking 2010. But we will get it. It's just, will we be this next issue or the one after? So that's something I want to lay out there for you guys. I have my email on there. If you have something ready, if you're interested in that, if you don't think you could only do it if we do the second round, let me know, but email me. And Judith Sugar and I will review them quick. We have to make sure it's publishable. The only requirement GGE has of you, they send them out for blind reviews. We won't have to do that as the coordinators, but you will have to make any modifications suggested by the reviewers. That's the agreement they have. So that's an opportunity. Publishable, here we go. Okay, questions? I felt like I just did a whirlwind of she'll learn from her peers in a much more quicker rate. It's huge. I'm madly thumbing through this because I have a student who had the same thing. She had said, I don't know why I'm so judgmental and biased. Right? This is a 20-year-old. Millennials, guys, they can do it. This resident smells, and she was from the Section 8 housing, low-income seniors, and she said, I have got to stop this. This is totally interfering with my interactions with her, and the dynamics are wrong. She said, my goal in the next, and she said, every minute I speak to that woman, I'm going to stop that thinking about going into the judgmental thing. And by the end, she did it. And then there was another, read this, this is a good one. The reasons why she wanted to, her learning goals. But that is the very thing. I mean, and I have them do presentations out, and I would have shown you a whole bunch. That's what I had loaded on there next, but I ran out of time. But that is, they correct each other. They'll say, wait, you know what? A better way to deal with that, Kathy, would have been, you just sit back and let it happen. It's amazing what happens. Just, it's so dynamic. And, and that's, they are proud of presenting it. And then it's like a competition of, our project's better than yours. Ours is more intense than yours. Look at the seniors really liked ours better than yours. I mean, it gets that way. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it kind of raises the bar. The standards get improved every time. Yeah, that's good.
Let's talk about the ripple effect. I had a student do a thing called the Days of Our Lives. She made
Cool.
kind of like a lifeline to do kind of storyboards for
Oh, wow.
And then have these things on residents' doors or did scrapbooks. And she liked it so much that she took it to her Girl Scout troop and had kids 12
Intergenerational.
go to a local nursing facility and as a project, collect stories and make up scrapbooks for
Wow.
certain designated residents. And it was phenomenal how these younger kids learned a lot about collaborating and just talking to older people who are frail and elderly. So I just thought, like, that's really cool.
Mhm.
That, you know, somebody could take a service learning project and flip it around
Mhm.
to, like, influence, like, the next generation yet.
Yeah. And so, you know, maybe stop the biases and stereotypes and the false beliefs before they start. You get the kids at young ages, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, around elders, they don't say they creep me out. I'm hearing where 20-year-olds haven't been exposed a whole lot and they don't see their grandparents as those older adults. That's reserved for family. That's, you know, nana or nanny or whatever. You know, but they're not in the same class to them. But everybody else is in that weird class. We don't. And I also have them do generational interviews. The Butler Life, so they do reminiscence, but that's just an assignment I do in my aging classes, where they actually learn all kinds of things about what life was like that they can't possibly ever read about and understand to the depth of what the elders tell them. And they come back and they go, wow. And I say, you know, careful, some of them, that can backfire on you as a technique because some of them have found some things out in their family that were not so good. And they came back and went, you know, I was shielded from this for years, and my mother just came out and said it, and this is how it was, and I never, at 24, I never knew that. I found out today. And then they were like, you know, abuse. There were some bad things. So that you got to deal with very carefully. I was like, learning about older adults, but you better not to do your relatives. I try to tell them, go meet somebody else. Yeah. Good idea. Our university has a whole legal counsel developed form that internships, field placements, and we have a Gero field class for our undergrad certificate, and minor service learning assignments. And no, I don't say that. I don't say it ahead in the course catalog. No, I say we'll learn through different ways about the various factors influencing the aging process. I'm thinking of one of my objectives in the front. I should have brought syllabi, but again, I didn't get the memo to bring all that you did yesterday. But I think if you tell them, it might pique their interest. You might actually get, you know, they find it positive, but I don't tell them ahead, I guess. They learn what it is, but you know, that's a great advertising tool because now they've liked it, and if they see that's part of the course catalog description, they're more likely to enroll in it. Never thought about that. It's a great idea. And the liability, that is, what happens with that is for the most part, if it's a situation, these activities, they cannot do things like medication involvement or things that, when they go to an assisted living and do chair exercises or hydrotherapy, they're sometimes under the supervision of somebody who's trained to take the liability if the elder gets hurt, because it's on the premises of the site and it's not going to be UNR's payment. But we also have a waive off of that, you know, we're not going to put our students in situations where harm can be done to an older adult if it's, you know, not in domestic violence. I mean, there's some very highly sensitive charge programs that we just don't, I haven't forayed out in that yet. But we do have them sign this, they all sign this agreement anyway, though. But it is developed by somebody who worked for AGHE through a campus compact program, and she was one of their interns. Betty's gone. AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps? Anybody know what I'm talking about? She was an intern volunteer, and she came back from Washington with this whole, here's what you got to have, here's the documents, work with our legal counsel, and that's how it came to be. I can't take any credit for that, but I could send you that, you know, if you're interested in using that. But basically, it just says we're not going to compensate, but again, we understand we're not putting the student in a situation where it's something that they're not skilled for, because that's also unethical. We can't put them in a situation they're not qualified to do. They don't get too heavy into heavy-duty activity. Yeah.
We're lucky in Missouri State because we can have, when we do a service learning course, it's designated on their transcripts that you did a service learning
See, we don't have that.
And it can be integrated into a regular 3 credit, or if you choose, if the faculty chooses to, it can be an extra credit, and whoever wants the service learning can take it.
You must give me an article. You have to give me an article on the Girl Scout thing. Sorry, I don't know your name. Get something in. That sounds cool. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's great. You know, part of it too is I have assignment directions. I didn't bring those, sorry, but I can email you those. It simply is the little piece of paper they take to the agency to show them that they're legit and not walking in off the street, because there's some very real issues with all that. But they set up a meeting with the director, with the activities director. They show them, this is my class assignment. It spells out what they're supposed to be doing. But we've not been able to get that kind of, you know, it's very, it's because some of our aging teachers, like myself and Judah Sugar and others, decide to put a service learning assignment or 2 in their class. But we don't have any way, budget-wise, to
Karen,
support it. Okay.
I'm
quiet.
thinking that maybe just
Okay.
maybe a few more minutes. Does that make sense for you?
She's so sweet about saying stop. Okay, how about one more question? Does that work? Yes? Did you have a question, or you're just waving at me? Oh, you're waving at your hair? Yes.
You know, everywhere I go, it seems like they use the word journaling as service learning. Is that essential?
The journaling satisfies, and if you get that AGHE, but I want to update it. That's been some time. Critical reflection. Reflection of any means. It's in your handout. You can have it orally. You can have it presentation like you have. I have that. I have journaling so that it's not common to have time logs. I don't know, maybe it is in yours, but I make them prove to me what they're doing with those hours. And research to do a talk in preparation counts. Travel time does not. Sleep time, obviously, things like that don't count. But, you know, in that sense, I think you can specify with the journal. I have them on that pink sheet. I just made that up. That's nowhere. But the reflection piece is critical. If they don't reflect and they can't process the experience and how it went and what they would change and hear the feedback, it's not a great service learning experience. That's what I found, but that's been morphed. I mean, that service learning portfolio, the pink sheet I gave you, has changed. It has started with a very skeletal, well, how'd you feel about this? Write a final paper, do a presentation, all the way to what you see now. And now I'm asking for the kitchen sink, and I'm sure I'll add some more soon. But all of that only makes them use and think about that information. And then it makes it really deep learning to me. That's why I'm doing that. But the journaling has been used as a method or means for reflection. And reflection is a critical element in service learning. That is done different ways, though.
Do you share questions? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Oh, sure. I like it. Yeah, I will never dump that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they have to do it right then and there, because, you know, with the millennials, yeah, I say do not leave the site in that episode amount of time you spent there that day. Whatever you did, I want to know what you did, how you achieved your goal. Think about, did you get to your goal? And I have them rate effectively and emotionally. But also I say, you know, don't tell me you're instant messaging and you got a date and you got to go to work and you got to go to lunch. Too bad. You got to do it. It's context dependent, but it's huge. If they do it right, and they all do, because they say they're going to forget. But millennials are slippery critters, man. They're really like, I got to go. My Bambi, my nephew, is going all the time. He's so important. Mm-hmm. Capture right there. Yeah. Yeah, and journals, there's no standard. I just gave you possibilities, and I keep changing mine. You know, create one. That's what it's about, refining the technique and making it better. Okay.
And also service writing projects where you can
Yeah.
make them grammar, punctuation, and everything, and then you don't have to have an additional writing project.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I need to host a table. I know, you can keep, I'm going to table host at the networking. You've been so kind.
Hey! ya no puede caminar, porque no tiene, porque le falta marihuana que fumar. La cucaracha,